I'm okay with that.
Good evening and welcome to the Xenia City Council meeting for February 25th, 2021. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. We will start with an invocation by Councilman Urschel.
Sure.
Okay. Followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by myself. If you could all rise, please.
Let's go ahead and pray. Father, thank you for today. And God, we just thank you that you are the creator of all. And God, that one of your attributes is wisdom. And that you tell us in the book of Proverbs that wisdom calls out to the street for us to listen to. And so, Father, we just pray that we would lean hard on your wisdom tonight. That we'd be slow to speak and quick to hear. God, that we would be good stewards of what you've entrusted us here in the city and for the people of our city, God, for their welfare and their benefit. And God, we pray for our folks on the police force and in the fire departments and as they are around our city tonight, and many times they're going into some very troubled situations. So we pray for their safety. We pray just for their health as well, and God, for the hard things that many times that they have to see when they go into homes and situations. God, give them peace in their hearts and steadiness, and we pray for a good night's sleep when they're able to go home tonight as well too. Just praise things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you very much, Councilman Urschel. At this time, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean? Here. Councilman Scrivens?
Here.
Councilwoman Dean?
Here.
Councilman Urschel?
Here.
Mayor Mays?
Here.
President Smith?
Here.
Councilman Branham?
Here.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
Yeah, everybody's here tonight.
Distracted by the TV.
Appreciate everybody being here this evening. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. First is the February 6, 2021 meeting. At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes. Please, that was a special meeting. It's moved by Councilwoman Dean, and a second? I'll second that myself. Any corrections or additions to the meeting minutes from our special meeting on February 6th? Not seeing any. We'll go for a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Next is the approval of minutes from the February 11th, 2021 regular meeting. At this time, I'll ask for a motion to accept the minutes as written.
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Dean. And a second, please.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Branham. At this time, would anyone like to make any corrections, changes, or additions to the minutes?
I had just one comment, and I've gone over this with Brent before. It's not in the body of the minutes, but as we had discussed for the annexation of the property on the south side of the town, what used to be the old Nationwide biweekly property. We talked about the fact that that was a attached annexation of the property taxes would remain with the township. Just one comment on the economic impact analysis that we went over. It was written up as if it was detached, and so it was showing that those revenues for the property taxes would be coming to the city. So I just like to have. I know that analysis only goes to us. It wasn't part of the package that went on to the county, but I think it's important to get that corrected if we could. And I know that wasn't, Michelle, in the formal body of the minutes, but I just like to make sure that analysis is corrected to go with the discussion that we had, and also with the part of the ORC that was submitted underneath, which required it to be an attached annexation.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else have anything to add to the minutes? All right. I guess to our city clerk, will you be able to make that change for Councilman Urschel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and at this time, we'll get a roll call to accept the minutes, please.
Vice President Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is special presentations. There are none scheduled for tonight. Also, due to the COVID-19, tonight's meeting is closed to the public. Public has an opportunity to submit comments or questions for council's consideration by emailing our city clerk by 3 p.m. today. As noted, we have one audience comment that I will read. Am I correct? This is the only one? Okay, thank you. This was an email received on Tuesday, and I think it was forwarded to all members of council. If not, we'll make sure that's forwarded to you. Hello, my name is Micah Adams. I am a Ohio State University student who grew up in Xenia, graduated in Xenia, and currently resides at 2650 Tennessee Drive here in Xenia. When he saw the city was acquiring the development rights to Xenia Town Square, I was really excited about the prospect of putting something fresh and unique in a drab and dated shopping center. And I firmly believe that this project has the potential to change Xenia in a drastic way for the better. And I'm very excited to see what comes of it. He also commented he looks forward to what the future holds for this project. Thinks council has done an outstanding job of using resources that they have coming up with creative solutions to solve some serious issues in our community while trying to be transparent and realistic about what can be accomplished. I wish council best of luck. Also alluded to the fact he was excited that we are working with Dillon Corp on this project. So thank you, Micah Adams, for that comment, and that will be noted in the records. Our next item on the agenda is old business. Our first item is Resolution 2021-letter J, which is a second reading. This is declaring the necessity for and authorizing the transfer of funds from the General Obligation Bond Payable Fund to the General Fund, and authorizing our law director to file an ORC 5705.14 petition for that said transfer with the Greene County Court of Common Pleas. This was originally introduced by Mayor Mays on February 11th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will move for passage.
Thank you. Move for passage by the mayor. And do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scrivens. Anyone have any comments or questions regarding this first resolution?
Mr. President.
Yes, Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, sir. Just would like the residents to know that the county will be transferring $119,037.23 to our general fund.
Thank you very much. So noted. Any other questions or comments regarding?
Ryan, can you go over, as this is inside millage, right? And this is not being used for that anymore. Do we continue to receive that inside millage, or is that something we have to petition with the county?
Yes, so we do continue to receive the inside millage. The difference is that now it does go directly into our general fund. So before we were required to put it into our 471 fund to cover that debt service. Now that that's expired, it just goes directly into our general fund, which is why it makes sense for us to just go ahead and transfer what's left as a balance in that 471 fund back over into our general fund. So I expect that it will be approved. It would make sense that it would. But any future revenues based on that inside millage is all going into our general fund.
General fund, okay.
Yeah.
And did that start with 2020 or 2021?
2021.
2021,
Yes,
okay.
correct.
Thanks.
Real
Right,
quick,
thank
Council
you.
President.
Yes, Councilman Branham.
I think it's our due diligence as a council to come up with a way that we're going to utilize this $120,000. I think that we should kind of come to a consensus that this money should be allocated hopefully toward roadways or something infrastructure related. I don't think that this was necessarily known that we had this $120,000 that was coming right away, you know, kind of thing. But I do think that that's our due diligence to come up with a plan where to put that, where to allocate that $120,000.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments regarding that? All right, and that's certainly something we could discuss as we work on our road improvement plan for this year. All right, seeing none other comments, I will ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Our next item, item B, is Resolution 2021-letter K. This is also a second reading, and this is designating the Xenia Community Improvement Corporation as the agency of the City of Xenia to advance, encourage, and promote industrial, commercial, distribution, and research development in our city. This was originally introduced by Mayor Mays on February 18th.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will move for passage on this too.
Thank you. Move for passage by the mayor. Do we have a second on this? Seconded by Councilman Scrivens. Thank you. Any comments or questions regarding Resolution 2021-K? Okay. Roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Abstain.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item, letter C, is Resolution 2021-letter L, also a second reading. This is authorizing the city manager to submit an application for a SAFER grant on behalf of the Xenia Fire Division. This was originally introduced by Councilman Scrivens on February 18th.
Mr. President, I'd like to move for passage.
Thank you. Move for passage by Councilman Scrivens. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Vice President Dean. Any comments or questions regarding the SAFER grant for our city manager at this time? Okay, roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is public hearings. There are none scheduled for tonight. Moving on to the next item is new business. Item A is Ordinance 2021-03, an introduction. This is amending Section 260.03 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Xenia to add classified positions of police service aide and engineering project manager and amending maintenance worker, and amending Section 274.07 of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Xenia to add the classified position of engineering project manager. Mr. Merriman, would you like to explain this?
Yes, sir. This was a pretty detailed general report, so I'm going to do my best to be as succinct as I can, but yet comprehensive enough for you to make sure that we're on the same page. With the request of this ordinance, staff is requesting this change to 260.03, and we're doing this because we feel there are changes to some approved staff positions that we need to make in order for us to be positioned to maximize the utilization of our staff members. These particular changes would affect both the police division as well as public service, and let me kind of address those separately. For the police division, we're recommending that the current parking attendant position be transitioned into an additional police service aide position. So this is essentially a one-for-one. This is not the addition of a position. It's taking an existing position and allowing a reclassification of that position pursuant to our civil service rules. So essentially what it would do under this model is the position would be, funding for the position will be split 50-50 between our parking fund and our police and fire fund, because the nature of the responsibilities for the position would be split. What we found in doing some administrative review in the police division, one of the key areas of concern that came up, and this is pursuant to the recommendations from our last CALEA review, was that we had a detective who was responsible for our property and evidence, and because a detective could be involved in a particular case where he or she is overseeing the evidence, that chain of custody was of concern. So this is something that we needed to address, and so originally we had intended on looking at the addition of a position to do that. We were able to move some operational responsibilities around among existing staff to avoid having to hire a full-time staff member to do this. But in doing so, we really have added more responsibilities to several staff members, which has reduced our ability to provide for records requests, and other functions that are typically overseen by the existing police service aides. At the same time, we had then asked our parking attendant, who spends a portion of his time currently in the office, to take on more and more of these tasks. And essentially, we've been asking that individual to work outside of the scope of his job, his position description, a lot. And we do have to plus rate that individual for that. But we feel it makes sense at this point in time to make that position a police service aide, which is a higher classification. The pay is a little higher, but in this case, it's not going to make a huge difference because we were already plus rating the menu anyway. So this is really aligning the position with the scope of the responsibilities that we really need covered. And again, part of this funding comes from parking, and part of it would come from the police and fire fund. So that's essentially what we are looking for in that particular change to this section. The public service, there are two components to the public service changes that we are requesting, that we're recommending. The first is regarding our position for our construction inspector. Recall the city used to have 2 construction inspector positions. We eliminated one of those positions back during some financial difficulties more than a decade ago, and we never brought that position back. In addition, we've eliminated numerous other positions between engineering and public service that we've never restored, and all the while have added infrastructure, have added overall responsibility, and frankly, overall workload. What we found over a period of time is that our construction inspector, who should be primarily responsible for providing direct oversight with projects in the field, city, construction projects where we have a contractual service agent, in addition to doing that, the construction inspector has been called on over the years to add more and more responsibility, actual project oversight, negotiating change orders with various agents, and even projects or responsibilities such as overseeing and provide guidance for our mechanical systems in both this facility as well as the Justice Center. So things that are well outside of the scope of responsibility for this position. So what we're recommending is the creation of an additional position description that would be more befitting with an updated set of responsibilities for that position, and be more reflective of what that employee is doing currently. And the position would be added as the engineering project, project manager position, which would then be added to our overall role, and we would transition that construction inspector position into this new role. So it's not the net addition of a position, it's transitioning the position again over to be more reflective of the nature of the current responsibilities. The third component, and the second related to public service, has to do with our laborers. A number of years ago, when we added the laborer position, the labor market was very different. We had a much greater ability at the wage points for this entry-level position that we offer to be able to find folks and bring them in at at that wage point. In recent years, our ability to do that has declined, while the turnover with that position has increased. And the bottom line is we are losing people in that position who are going on. For example, we just lost 2 in the past 6 weeks to the county, where they're making considerably more per hour to do essentially the same work. So what we found is this turnover, this attraction and retention issue has really creeped in to public service with respect to these labor positions. And so what we're recommending is that we, at this point, take those 4 labor positions and transition them all into maintenance worker positions. By design, the labor positions were supposed to be an opportunity to get entry level, and then when maintenance positions opened, you'd be able to move up the ranks to that next position. We just haven't had the movement above these employees sufficient to be able to allow that to happen, so we're losing the good people, frankly. So what we're recommending is the transition to the maintenance worker designation from the laborers. This actually has a net positive effect on our key operating because of the way we distribute the funding for the maintenance workers. So from a budgetary standpoint, while it's a higher pay range, it will not adversely affect our key operating. It'll be more that's coming out of our utility funds where we're in a pretty stable position. The other benefit to this is that under our collective bargaining arrangement, our laborers are limited in overtime. We have to provide overtime opportunities to our maintenance workers first, and so by having more maintenance workers, it does expand the number of overtime call-out individuals that we can bring back for snow events and other things. So that is an operational advantage that we get from this, in addition to having what we think will be a more stable situation in terms of the retention or the attraction and retention. So these three changes would have to be put through this change in the code, added so the position splits are reflected in the code. And again, what the expectation is that we would move in the direction to make these transitions with these employees through the civil service process as prescribed. So we're seeking introduction of the ordinance this evening. Sorry, I know it was long-winded, but it was a pretty long report.
you.
I wanted to try to summarize it.
Any questions for city manager at this time? Yes, Mayor Mays.
With the labor position being entry level, if we move it to maintenance, should a position become open, is it going to be harder to fill that if it's not as entry level? Workforce is hard to come by, so
It is.
Are we making it harder down the road when we need to hire somebody?
So it may be a little bit more difficult on the front end, but I think the thought process is that once you get those people in, you're going to be able to retain them better.
Okay.
And so I would rather have the problem of difficulty in finding people than the cost associated with the turnover, having to retrain. And again, there are higher standards that have to be met for the maintenance position. It requires the CDLA. And so, yeah, I think your point is fair. It may be, it's a greater expectation on the front end, but I think that would be paid dividends on the back end.
Thank you.
I would agree. Retention is really important.
Well, as we
For
talked with
unemployment.
council at your retreat session here a few weeks back, turnover issue is a problem. We just got another notice of another firefighter leaving today, and it is a problem, so.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the city manager?
Council
Yes.
President, I will probably have some more questions throughout the week with this introduction, but my question is, will that break that divide of saying, hey, no, laborers can only go out and cut grass, that sort of thing, versus where the maintenance workers, I lived it, I worked for the city of Xenia, you never really caught a maintenance worker very often on a lawnmower because of the fact that, oh, that's not my job.
Yeah.
And that, for me, I'm hoping that it doesn't change the morale out there, because the laborers used to bust their butt, and maintenance workers oftentimes, I'm not saying all of them, you would catch that, would tend to lack off and that sort of thing, which I'm hoping that doesn't change the morale of the laborers. And I don't know what the morale is compared to what it was when I was there, but us laborers, we used to go out and crank out some grass, run the weed eaters all day long, and it was pretty good. It was good work. It was good. We worked together as a team, versus where you don't have that aspect per se with all of the 112 staff.
Yeah, if I may, I'm glad you actually brought that up, Councilman, because I think there is some environmental benefit. What has happened with these positions, unfortunately, and as tends to happen in organizations, they are deemed at a lower level. And frankly, among the rank and file with the maintenance, not all, but some of the maintenance workers, the laborers were frankly kind of treated that way. And I would corroborate what you're saying in terms of the laborers that we have done exceptional work. They've got a great team. And that expectation does not change. And as we've been talking about with council over the past couple of months, we are resetting expectations in public service. The idea that you can have work assignments and work half the time all the time, or work half the amount all the time, is not acceptable anymore. We have too many needs on our parks and our streets and our infrastructure to accept that. And so we are making other operational changes, some of which we've shared with the council. But the expectation is that generally, what we've seen from the laborers is what we're expecting to see from the entire work unit. So I think the net result is actually positive, because everybody's equal out there now. You don't have that stratification and people looking down on this group who frankly were outperforming some of the peers above them.
Absolutely, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you.
Other duties is assigned. I hate to say that, but
And what this does mean, it means that some of the maintenance workers will be part of that mowing regimen, but again, we can also then use those same staff members for a much broader array of work, because they'll have greater qualifications to be able to do that.
All right. Thank you. I'll turn the floor to Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. City Manager, so the current laborers that we employ now, will they be moved up in terms of salary from 109 to 112? Is that an immediate boost, or how's that going?
Correct. So they would have to make at least the minimum of the next step, unless they're already at a point that's above that minimum.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, not seeing any. We've got a roll call on this item, please. Oh, I'm sorry, it's an introduction.
Yeah.
Who would like to introduce this tonight?
I'll introduce it.
Okay, introduced by Vice President Dean. Thank you. Our next item, item B, is an administrative motion appointing a member and an ex officio member to the Board for Recreation, Arts, and Cultural Activities. Xenia Codified Ordinance 278 states Board for Recreation, Arts, and Cultural Activities, Section 27801, titled Established Composition and Terms of the Chairperson's Meeting, authorizes our city council to appoint 5 residents to the city as voting members and 1 ex officio non-voting member to the board. The ex officio member may be a student at Zinnia High School. The student currently serving in this position is a senior at Zinnia High School whose term is expiring on April 23rd of this year. Mr. Joe, Mr. Joe Vogelsong is a student at Xenia High School who wishes to serve as the student liaison to BRCA for the next 1-year term. His appointment has been endorsed by Xenia High School guidance counselor, Ms. Jody Yaney. All past student representatives have tremendous assets to BRCA, and it's imperative that we continue to bridge the gap between city government and the youth of our community. Also, there's a vacancy on BRCA for a voting position, which was created by the appointment of Will Urschel to City Council, who was serving on BRCA at the time of his appointment. In response to the call for volunteers, Mr. Thomas Harlan expressed his interest in serving on BRCA. As the chair, I spoke with Mr. Harlan on the telephone and recommend his appointment, noting that Mr. Harlan has attended the city's Citizen Academy class and spoke very highly of that, by the way. So his background check is satisfactory. So at this time, I will ask if anyone else would like the pleasure of making the motion to appoint these 2 members to BRCA.
I'll move.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Branham. Thank you. Normally that I would make that motion. However, I really feel it's a pleasure and an honor to appoint citizens that want to be engaged in our community. So I actually thank both of these 2 members, and we'll invite them to our next BRCA meeting, which is actually scheduled for next week, Tuesday, March 2nd, right here at 6 o'clock. Is that correct? Right time? Thank you. And at that, our biggest topic will be the Easter egg giveaway and drive-through wave, that you'll all be getting some information on that here very soon. So we have a motion and a second. Anyone have any questions regarding the appointment? All right, not seeing any. So
I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
I'm really encouraged that the students want to participate in this, and they bring a lot. And especially a lot of the activities that we have, we need just folks showing up and helping out, assisting set up and tear down and work during the activities, and the students have been doing a great job with that, and the liaison is really important for that. So.
Right. Thank you very much. And I would like to comment, I would like to thank Garrison Henry for his willingness to serve on BRCA last year. Unfortunately with COVID, we had very few meetings, so I do appreciate his volunteerism, as well as the fact we engage a lot of the National Honor Society students, as well as youth group from Emmanuel Baptist Church. Is that right?
Some with youth, some with Emmanuel, and some with Faith Community.
Okay. Yeah, Faith Community and Emmanuel Baptist. We can't thank our volunteers enough for putting on that event. Yeah, Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to thank the Xenia High School guidance counselor, Mrs. Jody Yaney. Apparently she can recognize good talent, and she's recommending that good talent to us.
Yes.
And we thank her for that. And we also would like to thank Mr. Thomas Harlan for picking up the cross when it goes by him. Right. So we appreciate him stepping up to serve also.
Right, I agree. Thank you. And I would like to point out, Ms. Yaney served for a long time at Xenia High School as a guidance counselor and retired. Actually, they asked her to come back to fill a gap. So it was a pleasure to actually see her name pop back up. I was really surprised. So, all right, getting back to the topic here, we'll ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Next item Item C is an administrative motion. This is authorizing the city manager to execute work order number 2021-02 with Wood Environment and Infrastructure for 2021 post-closure groundwater monitoring under the existing master services agreement. Mr. City Manager, would you like to explain this?
Yes, sir, thank you. Staff is recommending the city continue its longstanding relationship with Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions Incorporated. This is to provide landfill post-closure groundwater monitoring as indicated for this year. This monitoring is required by OEPA under mandate, and the city does not employ any qualified persons who are capable of doing this in-house. Wood Environment Infrastructure Solutions is the successor firm that's performed groundwater monitoring at our closed landfill since 1996. Therefore, they have a vast and very valuable span of knowledge about the landfill site and the unique conditions of our closed landfill. So we think it's beneficial to maintain this relationship and carry this over into another year. The service quote provided by Wood Environment Infrastructure for the groundwater monitoring for the year is $35,458. The annual service would be provided under the existing 2021 Master Services contract. So we're just requesting authorization by administrative motion this evening to execute work order 2021-2, which will allow for the services under that contract.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to execute this work order?
So moved.
Moved by the mayor. And a second, please.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Branham. At this time, I'll open up the floor for any questions or comments regarding.
It's the money pit.
All right. Yeah, not seeing any other comments. I would like to comment, this is landfill that's been closed since how long?
96.
96. And it continues, even though it does not create any revenue for the city, it continues to drain our resources. So it's a liability that we've inherited, and will continue to absorb this, unfortunately. So no other comments. We'll ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item, item D, is an administrative motion. This is awarding the bid and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Broomball Construction Incorporated for the South Columbus Street Bridge project. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
It is? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. City Engineering and staff applied in February of 2018 for State of Ohio grant funding through the Ohio Department of Transportation Municipal Bridge Program. This was to replace the deteriorating South Columbus Street Bridge. The project includes the replacement of the existing bridge beams with a concrete box culvert structure. The engineer's estimate for the project was $659,000, with the cost of construction being covered by the Department of Transportation. The city is overseeing the project implementation, and on February 9th, we received 7 competitive bids from qualified contractors to complete this project. As demonstrated in your agenda report, Broomball Construction, who was the low bid, it has, from the research, I should say, we've done in terms of their prior projects, has demonstrated that they can successfully complete this project, so we feel like they are a capable firm, and so given the low price and their demonstrated ability, we are recommending that council, by administrative motion, authorize the Columbus Street Bridge project under Broomball Construction at a not to exceed cost of $461,990. It's easy for me to say.
All right. Thank you very much. This time I'll seek a motion to award the bid to Broomball Construction.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Branham. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dean. Any questions or comments regarding this awarding of the bid? Yes, Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to note for the citizens, I was appointed to council back in 2018, and this was one of the first projects that we were considering. And to just show you that government does work, it just grinds slowly. So now we're approving the contract, so before long, the bridge will be done, but we have to be patient. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes.
I would note too that the city will publicize, obviously, when the bridge construction begins or reconstruction begins, we will need to shut that roadway down for a period of time. So we will post publicly what the detour route for that will be, and we'll put that out on social media and on our website. But just so folks know that will be coming. It'll be temporary, so we can get the bridge fixed.
So question for you, this is totally 100% grant funded?
This one is 100% grant funded on the construction, yeah.
Okay, so, not to sound dumb, I know normal practice is the lowest bid.
Mhm.
But is that always the best decision if it's 100% grant funded? Or by law, do we have to accept that
Well, we
bid?
accept the lowest and best.
Okay.
But again, part of what we look at is not just the price, but also to make sure that they're providing a bid that is, we feel, comprehensive and complete in
Okay.
nature. And
Okay.
we do due diligence in researching the firm to make sure they have a demonstrated track record and can prove their ability to successfully execute the project. So yeah, I see your point.
Well,
But
I see a spread of 126,000 between the top bid
Yeah.
and their bid, and that concerns me a little
Right.
bit. Or that and I appreciate our engineer being here. How did that happen? Okay, so, and it is off. So, I don't know, Mr. Berger, do you want to allude to?
Well, I'll add as he's coming to the podium,
Okay.
Mr. President, that if you look at this particular bid, in fact, if you look at all three of the projects that we have requested awarding tonight, you're going to see a sort of incremental iterations of bids, which I think is generally probably a good thing to see. I think where we get worried, if we have multiple bidders and we see one that is substantially lower than
Right.
everyone else, that's where we would raise some red flags and say, wait a minute, did they forget something? And we've had occasions where bidders have not completely read the bid specifications, and we've caught errors, sometimes before the bids are certified, sometimes unfortunately after. So, that's the type of red flag that we look for in that distribution of those bid amounts.
Okay, so
And
that
then-
spread doesn't
yes,
concern you?
I'll echo everything the city manager said, but just for clarification, a lot of times when we apply for a grant, admittedly, in the engineering staff, we go what we call fat. I always say to my guys, all right, we go fat, and what I mean is
Right.
we want to make sure that we have enough money, that we'd rather overestimate than underestimate for obvious reasons.
Sure.
But then the other side of that is, you don't want to go too fat, because then you'll get yourself out of the market and you won't
Right.
get the grant.
Right.
So, no, I'm comfortable. Broomball Construction here has been around this area for numerous years. Is to give you, if you've been over in Kettering, I believe they're doing right now that overpass for Ridgeway Road right there on Dorothy Lane, if you've been through there recently. So, they can more than handle this, so this job's small potatoes to them.
I'm sure. Okay, I feel comfortable with that. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
It's a shame we can't get $126,000 more roadway paved right there on Columbus, right?
Right, absolutely.
I just want to pass off my thanks to Chris, Dom, and Sherm for their work on this, because I know that you guys all three were directly involved with getting this grant funding, so.
Yeah, thank you.
And to that point, if I could just add one more item, we've got 3 consecutive items here that are really attribute to the success of our engineering department in securing grants. And that's bringing a lot of resources, much needed resources for transportation projects in our community. So they go the extra mile. They do a great job. It goes unheralded. And so just want to kick them a compliment and a thanks tonight, because obviously these projects are a result of their hard work.
And not to put you on the spot, but I always like to ask for a timeline. Do we have a timeline of when this is going to happen?
Like next week or something?
And you don't have to come.
No, that's okay. Yeah, the completion date, per the contract documents for this job, is, I brought the wrong one. This one, the South Columbus is September the 30th
Okay.
of this year. Before somebody says it's 21,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Berger. All right, anyone else have questions? All right, we'll go to a roll call, please. Thank you.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item, item E, is listed as an administrative motion. This is awarding the bid and authorizing our city manager to execute a contract with John R. Jurgensen Company for the Bellbrook Avenue resurfacing project. Mr. Merriman.
Thank you, sir. Again, with this item, our engineering staff is successful in securing this time federal grant funding through Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission to address the rapidly deteriorating condition of a section of Bellbrook Avenue, and this is from Maumee Drive to Peace Pipe Trail. This would add to previously completed projects on Bellbrook as we seek to rehab this important thoroughfare in our community. The total project estimate was $427,334. Again, on February 9th, 3 competitive bids were received from qualified contractors to complete this particular project. John R. Jurgensen was the low bid, and we are very familiar with the firm as they have successfully completed a lot of our roadway projects in recent years. So staff is recommending council approve an administrative motion to award this project bid to John R. Jurgensen Company at a cost not to exceed $286,986.24.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion to award the bid to John R. Jurgensen?
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Dean. Do we have a second?
So Go ahead.
Thank you. Seconded by Vice President Dean. At this time, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments. All right, not seeing any. Roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scriven?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item listed as item F is also an administrative motion. This is awarding the bid and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with John R. Jurgensen Company for the Kinsey Road resurfacing project. Mr. City Manager.
Here we go again. So in July of 2019, our engineering staff applied for a grant through the Ohio Public Works Commission to rehabilitate Kinsey Road from Old Springfield Pike to Yellowstone Road. We were successful with this application for a project that involves asphalt base repair of the drive lanes ahead of the full width resurfacing of the roadway, and we'll also do some selected curb and sidewalk and ADA ramp replacements in that stretch of road as well. The total project estimate was $393,373. This was also bids that were received on February 9th, again from 3 qualified contractors. Again, here, John R. Jurgensen was the low bid, which, again, we're comfortable with this firm. And so we are recommending council approve an administrative motion to award the bid for the Kinsey Road resurfacing project to John R. Jurgensen at a cost not to exceed $254,443.54. And again, we're pleased to see all 3 of these bids come in well under the estimate.
Thank you very much. Who would like to make a motion to award the bid to resurface Kinsey Road?
So moved.
Moved by the mayor. Who else? Second?
Second.
By Councilman Scrivens. Yeah, that's a no-brainer there. Thank you. So while we ask questions, we're starting at Old Springfield Pike.
Yes.
Why not Detroit
No,
Street?
Detroit.
Because that was actually fairly recently repaved. If you remember, we did the mast arms and the reconditioning of that whole intersection. So that's actually in pretty good shape
It
there.
is.
It's right there at Old Springfield
Okay.
Pike where the condition significantly deteriorates all the way along the high school, all the way to Yellowstone.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, that was my
I do have
question.
one question, or one statement, I guess.
Yeah.
If you would pass along to public service, just to make sure that we're exercising those valves in those sections of roadways, to make sure that we don't have any bad valves that need to be replaced before that roadway is repaved.
Yeah.
So, thanks, Chris.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions?
Just that,
Yeah.
finally, the washboard will be smoothed out on Kinsey Road.
All right, thank you very much.
Chris, I had one question. So this one, there was a significant difference on the base repair between the 3 bidders. I mean, there was a spread of $70,000 between 2 of them. And I just, could you kind of talk to that? And so on one hand, glad that we're getting something that's significantly lower than the estimate, but that's one of the major components of this repair, and for somebody to come in that much lower, I'm just kind of curious as to what was going on between the other 2 bidders and this bidder and the understanding of that.
Sure. Good question, and we thought the same thing, but there's a couple things at play. Number one, it's John R. Jurgensen.
Right.
They know City of Xenia, they know our roads, they know our inspectors,
Sure.
they know what we expect. They've done every street program we've done here in the city. Number two, we bid this project at the right time. I think you, members of council said, you've heard us say with roadway projects in particular, let's get them out first of the year because you're getting the best prices because the contractors are setting up their work for the rest of the year versus if we put this thing out, for instance, in May, we're going to pay for it. So considering the contractor and when we put this thing out, I'm not concerned in the least bit.
Okay.
Okay, so timeline on this one?
This one, and like Bellbrook, those are both June 30th.
Fantastic.
By
Completion
June
date.
30th.
Please?
Completed by June 30th?
Correct, those are the completion date for the
Okay.
contract documents.
And obviously, the plan here is to be outside of the school year.
Okay.
So that we're not impacting the flow of
Correct.
traffic.
Are these fixed price bids in the contractors bidding the job? Or is there a
They're unit price bids.
unit price bids? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So are we locked in as a guarantee if asphalt skyrockets?
Yes, we're locked in.
We're locked in?
Yeah.
Okay. And they have to put the right amount down?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, or we won't warrant the street and won't accept it.
okay. All right, very good. We talked about that today a little. Thank you.
Will our normal street paving be affiliated with the same batch right around June? Will we know about?
We're still awaiting the word from the invitation to, or solicitation we'd like to see from the county engineer's office. We're expecting that. We've sent a couple of emails over to the county engineer for that. Let's hope it gets out sooner than later, to be honest with you. Admittedly, to answer your question, Councilman Branham, if it doesn't move fairly soon right there, we'll probably just put it out on our own.
It's getting late. As Chris talked about, the best values come early when contractors are lining up their work for the season. And just to circle back, I think we had some conversation on this previously, but our intention in terms of street program this year, the county is replacing East Main Street extended, and so they've invited us for a section of that roadway to complete it all the way up to the stop, to the signal at Jasper. So that small stretch of roadway, and then pursuant to conversations we had last year, we would go to Allison this year and do a pretty significant chunk of Allison to replace that. So in addition, we've also talked, we've had a couple of significant water main breaks that have done some damage this season, one on Colorado, that new asphalt. So we'll seek a contractor repair of that. And then we had a significant break last year off of West Street, a couple roads off of West Street. So we're looking at some repair over there as well. So again, never as much as we'd like to do, but already in the queue thinking about the quants that we will put in with the county engineer, hopefully soon to be able to do our street program, which will be in addition to all these projects that are being listed here tonight.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions?
I'll just add my thanks, Mr. Berger and team. This is fantastic, and I know this takes a lot of effort and a lot of planning, so thank you so much for your efforts.
All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Vice President Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Brand.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item, listed as item G, is an administrative motion. This is authorizing the city manager to execute a water service agreement with KTD Partners, LLC. Mr. City Manager, would you like to explain this?
Yes, sir. The city's been presented with a fairly unique opportunity to pursue what we think is a mutually beneficial arrangement with the owner of 1030 Stevenson Road, which is KTD Partners, LLC. The owner wishes to connect to the city's water utility system to service what would be up to a maximum of 7 tracts of land upon approval of a survey plat by the Greene County Regional Planning Commission. The property is, the property at the address is approximately 69 acres of land, and KTD Partners is proposing to subdivide that into 7 different tracts for residential development, just 7 residential units essentially. Because the subject property is outside the city's corporate limits, our policy would normally be to not be inclined to extend services unless the property owner would annex. The property owner in this particular case does not wish to annex for various personal reasons at this time. Given that, though, there are some compelling reasons that we think council should consider agreeing to an arrangement here. The property owner has proposed the addition of a 12-inch water main for the city to service the 7 tracks, which expands the area we can service, obviously, nearby. Probably greater, more important thing, though, is that the subject property overlays the existing 10-inch line that services Central State University. And when that 10-inch line was put in many decades ago, and I'm talking many decades ago, they didn't have the same standards in terms of establishing utility easements that we would have today. So there have been some significant issues with prior property owners of that property as to whether or not the city has any right-of-way easement to be able to maintain that 10-inch line or even to replace it. So we've had a long-standing issue with this Central State line, and we think there's an opportunity here for sort of a legal quid pro quo that could benefit both the property as well as the city. So under the proposed agreement, the owner would construct a new 12-inch water main in a southerly direction along Stevenson Road from the current 10-inch water main terminus near the intersection of Stevenson and Kinsey Road. In addition, they will then extend the new 12-inch water main in an easterly direction for approximately 1,621 feet to service the future tracks that we've described. The 12-inch water main will enhance the city's ability to attract and service properties to the east and south to accommodate future annexations if it's desired. Per city requirements, new water mains installed for this type of development must be at minimum an 8-inch diameter. Because the larger sized water mains are not required to service the proposed 7 properties, we are suggesting the city would pay for the difference in upsizing that line, but that's to our system benefit. So we think that's appropriate. The agreement also establishes a covenant that after 20 years, the city would be afforded the right to request annexation of these properties. So it meets that need of the current property owners to not want to annex now, but the city would reserve the right for that opportunity in the future. Staff was a little bit hesitant on this. Typically, we would not endorse any type of service extension outside of the city without annexation. But we do feel very strong that this is a really good opportunity to resolve this easement issue that we have here to this point not had a solution for. And we can do this in a way that really provides benefit to both the property owner out there as well as the city. So given these facts, we're recommending that you approve by administrative motion the ability to execute this water service agreement upon such terms and conditions that the law director and I would approve.
All right, thank you. I do have some questions, but point of order, I will ask for a motion to authorize the city manager to execute this. Moved by Councilman Scrivens. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Vice President Dean. So my question to you, why do they not want to be annexed?
I think...
What's the issue? Is it a deal breaker or not? Because I kind of have a problem with it.
I think so. Yeah, really. I think now they've we've made a good faith effort to commit to only what we can commit to as staff, and they understand through the early part of the discussion on this that this would require council's approval. I don't want to speak on their behalf. I think it's just their desire to. I don't know if it's tax avoidance, if they just want to be in the bucolic nature of the residential, of the countryside. I can't speak to it exactly, but I think this was a significant issue for them. But obviously annexation is a significant issue for the city if we are committing our services to territory outside of the corporate limit right now. So I think this is sort of the best of both worlds. Again, I would not endorse this. I would not recommend were it not for these other mitigating circumstances. But because the city is gaining some benefit, particularly to our utility system, this at this point in time is something that's more utility rooted than anything else. The other thing that we were very specific about, we did at 69 acres. If a guy wanted to do a housing development, you could put quite a few units in 69 acres, which is why we were very specific to say you can only have 7 taps off this line. We're not going to have you do 7 and then come back in 3 years and do 15 more and 20 more after. No, this is not going to be a residential development. But there are a couple of individuals through this firm that are seeking to build houses out there, and they don't want a whole bunch of residential development.
Okay, so it is only 7 proposed homes back in there.
Yep.
So if this did not go through, what recourse do they have? Wells? Would they just have to put in a well?
Well, in order to, they're going to have utility access, and I'm not sure that the plan will be approved through the county if they didn't have the utility access, correct, Chris?
Correct.
Yeah. But again, our problem is that, whether it's approved or not, we had this issue of this liability for the central state line that presently we have no good means of resolving. So we're going to have to work with this property owner one way or another, because this line currently traverses their property.
So we get the firm understanding of our easement, right?
Yeah, in fact, and not only that, but they're going to pay for the majority of the cost for replacing that line and upgrading it.
Right.
We'll pay for the difference between the 8-inch to the 12-inch, but they're going to cover most of that cost. So that's cost that we would have had to incur for replacement of a good portion of that central state line. And it's worth noting, too, they'll obviously have to pay the non-residential utility rates, will be a higher rate than our residents pay.
And we're deferring the annexation potentially for 20 years, but at the 20-year point, we can unilaterally request annexation.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm assuming part of the contract would stipulate the 7 houses, like.
Yes.
Correct. That's a covenant
Okay.
within, the deed restriction within those, yeah.
Do we get that in a legal agreement with
Yep.
them before this happens?
It's in this, and I think is there a deed restriction that's put on it?
It would have to be, it would go with the deed, and the law director did a good job.
Yeah.
putting it in there.
A restrictive covenant that goes by.
So the 49,000 that costs the city, that'll come out of water funds
Correct,
then?
yeah. And again, that's something we've been kicking the can down the road for years on this conversation with that central state line. That line's a very old line, it's still functioning, but it is at what I would consider fairly high risk of failure. And that is the primary water utility, in fact, it is at this point the only water utility resource for Central State University, and we have a few township customers out there as well. So we have been having conversations about what alternate route we could take and what the expenditure and what grant options might be available to us to replace this line. This agreement would dramatically alter our thinking on that. It would help resolve some of these issues and frankly offset a lot of the cost that we would have otherwise.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I have another question. I'm kind of confused. We have a bid proposal from Earth and Piping. Who's paying these two bids? Who's paying for this? The contractor is?
They are.
Yeah, correct, they are. And
They
then
pay it, okay.
the portion that's the 49 and change that we would have, I think that is
The upside.
Fortune County. Yeah,
That's
right.
correct.
Yeah, so we'd be taking care of that in-house.
Sure. And I'm sorry, this is kind of a personal thing, because I live really close to this, and I would really like to have seen them become part of our community, like Kinsey Meadows and Summerbrook
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And it was a win for the city. So I'm a little offended, literally.
Yeah, I understand
They
that,
don't
and
want to be
I-
in our city, but they want our services.
Yeah.
So,
They
yeah,
want the milk.
right.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, I think the engineer would agree, we conveyed that message that the council would not take this lightly, and under slightly different circumstances where you take this existing easement issue out of the mix, we told them we didn't think there was a prayer that this council would even consider this. In fact, to be honest, I don't think we would have even brought it back to you. There just exists a unique set of circumstances with the situation where it's that rare alignment of the stars that both parties, both the city and these individuals or this firm can benefit from this arrangement. And it doesn't, I think the other thing that we insisted, and largely through discussion with the law director, that we put that provision on the 20 years for the annexation. So in the end, we get what we would hope for anyway.
So, we won't be sitting here in 20 years. Some of you guys might, some of you will. I'll be in a nursing home. But
There'll be a dean on the council, may not be.
can the owners of those lots, if they have a problem with annexation, can they stop that? Because do they realize, okay, yeah, I'm building here, but in 20 years, whether I like it or not,
Well,
I'm in the
they've signed
city.
up with a unseverable requirement.
Yeah,
with this, right?
and if they sell the properties,
bad.
obviously these restrictions stay with the property.
Yep.
And anyone who would do any deed research in the future would have to,
This is
be aware.
an easement lien on that property.
So how do we police that? I mean, do we have a calendar in 20 years that we call them up and say, well, guess what?
It's
It would be on the city to do that.
Calendar.
Council President, right there, the law director in the service agreement here did put, I'll read directly from item number 7, the owner, meaning who we're dealing with here, not the city. The owner hereby agrees that this agreement shall be made a part of any deed transferring any portion of or interest in the property.
Goes with the property.
Right.
But to your point, it would still be
It'd be up to us to
the city's responsibility.
ships.
And that's where, obviously, probably none of us are going to be sitting in our current seats here. So, we'll have to set up some mechanisms to make sure that this is something that is brought to their attention at that point in time.
But this is the longest that can be deferred, that can be executed by the property owner.
Correct. Yep, absolutely.
Correct.
Any of those property owners would have the opportunity, assuming they meet contiguity requirements and so forth, would have the option of seeking annexation prior to that 20-year period.
Okay, so I know we're running late, but another question that I have. So we've got 7 lots here off of Stevenson, and it looks to me like you got to go through track 1B to get to the back 3. You're going to have to drive through literally almost every track to get to the last one. Who's putting in a road there, or is it gravel?
It will be a private road right there. So if ever in the future that it would be annexed right there, it would have to be brought up to our standards. Obviously, since this is just a private development, it's all private road. Obviously, they do that for cost purposes. But there's a center road that basically has the ability to serve all those properties. So the road's in the center between the north and south of those tracts of land. It's hard to discern on here.
Okay.
So just to be clear, the road is a private road
I
and
understand.
would not have to meet our city specifications. The utilities will be installed by KTD, but have to be to city specifications and would become city property upon our acceptance when it's complete.
Which is also part of Exhibit A as part of the agreement, where it's to our standards.
So who approves their road? Is that township, or is that going to be Greene County?
I don't think it really has to be approved.
Yeah, I don't think it is approved. It wouldn't be us, because it's private, on private
It's not
property.
a public throughway, so there's no expense.
It's a long lane, that's the way of
But
characterizing
then
it,
we
yes.
inherit it in 20 years.
Please?
We inherit that in
Potentially.
20 years,
It
right?
would have to be brought to our standards.
Yeah. So, and that would have to be done at that time, and that would have to be done through assessments?
Or, yeah, potentially,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I just have a problem with it. I'm sorry. I know there's a win for us, and that's the only reason why I would vote for it. Anyone else have questions?
It's a typical horse trading deal. Just one question, are any of the current properties on well and septic, or how is the sanitation being handled?
Let's see here, to my knowledge, right there, it's septic on that land, because right now, it's one big 68-acre parcel there. But I don't know where the septic system is or the water system. It's obviously been on private property.
Okay, just a question. Thank you, sir.
All right, so any other questions? All right, sorry I took all the time on that one.
So we have other properties that have been brought into the city that don't meet the zoning requirements, because when they were annexed in, they were either on septic or gravel roads. I mean, we've got quite a number of properties within the
There
city.
are still private residences in the city on septic.
Right.
We continue to find properties.
And with
that-
gravel roads, because when they were incorporated in, that's what was there at that
Right.
time, so.
I know someone 30.
So all I'm saying is, there isn't necessarily a requirement that when you're annexed in, that you have, we may have to come and before the BZA or whatever we do within that context and say, part of the agreement of the annexation is that we maintain.
We'll all come back in 20 years to talk about this.
Right.
Make sure that it's brought up to code.
If, Mr. President,
Yes.
Probably not a bad idea.
if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Berger, the state requires if well and septic, if sanitation goes by your house, then you're obligated to connect to it within, 3 years?
That is correct. That's Ohio Administrative Code, but the deal is, the sewer is not contiguous to this property.
Okay.
So, it physically has to be, I think the way the Administrative Code says, accessible or readily accessible, something along that lines. The sewer, the closest sewer is the Trump sewer coming down 42 out of Central State area there, but this is further south. It crosses Stevenson Road, if everybody knows about where that big S is right there.
That's correct.
Yeah, which is really not that close to this parcel, if that makes sense to you. So they would not be required, I guess what I'm trying to say to you.
But at such point in the future as that would be amenable, it would be within our, I guess you'd say, sewer overlay district, so we would be the utility provider.
On this project, we have to take the long view, and
Right.
sometimes you have to do that.
So what's to stop them from not putting it in homes, but put it in like an industrial
This is all.
company?
So there are zoning regulations under the township, not as stringent as ours.
Correct.
But they would have to meet the zoning regulations under the township, part of which I think takes into consideration what's around it, same as our zoning code does.
Right, okay. All right,
And
thank you.
again, and probably to add to that, for some type of industrial provider, obviously they're going to need, if they're coming onto our system, there's a different set of standards for tap and pressure and everything else. So they'd be running a risk if the system was not designed to be able to meet the demands of an industrial system. So.
All right, thank you.
Just so I better understand this, I keep on going back to this drawing. So you've got the dash line, that's the 10-inch that's pre-existing. That is where we're getting a utility easement. But now will we also have a utility easement that would
Yes.
basically extend past, it would be the new line as well, correct? Because they're
So
not both in the same
We're going to have
area.
the ability to maintain this existing 10-inch line, and then, and again, with the addition of the new segment, there'll be a dedicated easement on that new 12-inch line that'll be installed.
Yeah, so that's just for clarification, yeah, so I drew in the line, the dash line is the existing water main, as I put in the staff report. We know there's an easement dedicated.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the width is. We don't know, so our intent would be is to make a 20-foot width easement for that existing water main through there.
Okay, now, eventually down the road, when we go on further out with this water main to replace Central State, we would are we tying into the 12-inch or are we tying into the 10-inch?
Well, we would be, we did a study for Central State's water system based upon anticipated growth, and that's where the recommendation comes that it would be replaced entirely as a 12-inch, which is why we want to be consistent throughout on this. So to answer your question, the rest of that 10-inch, once it leaves this property and heads east towards Central State, would also be a 12-inch, which means we're going to have to get similar easements from the other adjacent property owners.
Which again, with the existing line not having any recorded dedicated easements is already a problem for us anyway, because that line is going to have to be replaced. I mean, we cannot continue to allow that line in its current condition to not be addressed. So.
If I could right there, and I know we're getting to put a bow on this right there, Councilman or President Smith, I wholeheartedly agree, and I think the city manager with your position. As a matter of fact, when I first started here, I was like that same thing. It's like, aren't we requiring the annexations because in other communities, that's the norm to do that.
Right.
But in this particular case, after discuss with the city manager, we are getting a benefit here that we really need to get. Okay? And the other thing I'll say is the previous property owner was not good to work with. I guess it goes back a long way before I was ever employed here. Had some issues with the city. We have a willing and cooperative property owner here that's willing to work with us on this.
Okay.
So I would just add
Well, and I
that.
appreciate that benefit to the city, otherwise I would not be in favor. But I'm sorry to be dumb, I don't understand quite how the process always works. So we're only getting an easement through this property here. Do we still have easement through the rest of this wooded area here? And how does that work?
Are you saying
with
to
that?
extend that 12-inch?
Yeah, how does that
We will
work?
have to secure additional easement. Yep.
So is there a guarantee that that'll happen though?
I mean, you want the cooperation of property owners, but we would have the ability to do that.
There would be no guarantee necessarily. I mean, we can't guarantee that, but by having the main there, you can start getting into, like we did with this property owner right there, you say, hey, if you give us an easement, maybe we might waive some tap fees if you ever want to tap into it.
Okay, got it.
Once again, the quid pro quo.
Right, okay.
You gotta play ball.
All right, very good. I'm not a very good player. All right, anyone else have any questions?
Hey,
All right.
play ball.
All right, not seeing any. We'll go for a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Berger,
Yeah,
for
thanks
all of
for-
that. I was
thank
gonna
you.
say,
I've
Mr.
been to
Berger,
drag it out
thank you.
later,
Thank you,
but
City
yeah,
Manager.
it's just,
No, thank you.
yeah, I have a
was a
strong
lot.
belief if you like our community and you want to be part of it, you go wholeheartedly in it. You want our services, then you know.
I think everybody in the room
It's
would
not
agree with that, to be
unfair
honest. Yeah.
to ask for that. So next item H, is also an administrative motion. This is approving our schedule of bills in the amount of $261,221. Do I have a motion to approve the schedule of bills?
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Dean. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Branham. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Questions regarding the schedule of bills?
Just a comment.
Yes.
For the account 2021-0210, have we started actually to doing anything there yet or not?
I'm not following.
Page four.
On page 4,
Page 4.
0210. Have we started to doing anything with that? Croston?
I'm still not, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Glickman? Trying to.
Oh, Glickman?
Yeah. Have we started to inter anything there with?
Yeah, we have the first plot was set last fall, and
Got 3 or 4 or 5 in the queue ready to go?
6 in a queue, well, 6 interred now, and we have 7 in-house right now, so we'll do another one this spring. And we have
Eventually, I'd
3
like to
more on
get
their way right now.
some historical type signage there.
There will be markers placed for each of these groupings, and we're also looking at installation, I don't know if we'll get to it this year, but installation of signage for the historic cemetery. Yeah.
Eventually. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? All right, roll call, please.
Vice President Dean. Aye. Councilman Scrivens.
Aye?
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Yeah, we got a motion in a second.
Okay, I missed it.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
No, I'm sorry.
Any question? I was starting to wonder, but yeah, we did. All right, next is reports of committees. Our first and only report is Board of Zoning Appeals. Mayor Mays.
We did not meet, we did not have any applications for an appeal, so.
Thank you very much. Anyone have anything for the mayor regarding BZA? All right, thank you. Next is appointed officials' reports and council comments. Our first up will be the city manager.
Thank you. Just one thought to impart tonight. It appears we've finally eclipsed the worst of our winter weather season, so I want to give a thanks to our public service staff for doing a very good job through what's been a very difficult month of February. So we hopefully are beyond snow and ice removal, but we are still very much in the season for water main, potential water main issues, so we continue to address that. And then as a result of our snow and ice treatment this year, obviously, potholes become a concern. And so I know after speaking with a couple of you, it's already, folks drawing, questions and concerns. Have already had discussions with the Public Service Director and he then with his staff, and we're intending to do a very aggressive push. However, anything we do over the next few weeks will just be very temporary cold patch fixes. As the asphalt plants are not open yet, so getting a more permanent fix on some of these, it'll be March or April before we're able to get out and do more permanent fixes on those. So we're aware of it. We intend to be very aggressive with it, but it'll be a few weeks yet before we can really get good fixes in. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone have anything for the city manager tonight? All right, thank you.
Actually, one other thought real quick.
Yes, sir.
Apologize. I reported to council in a memo, or I think an email a while back, that we've been notified that there are some price increases that are coming down the pipe, literally and figuratively related to our natural gas. This is not just for us as an aggregate community. Pretty much everyone in the region is going to experience this. And just had some additional communication this week from our consultant, Palmer Energy. This is likely to hit February bills of consumers. So in addition to the very cold month that we had, probably in the range of 10 to 20%. Customers will expect to see an increase as a result of these additional fees that are being levied by one of the large transmission companies. It's a large regional transmission company, so much of the state of Ohio is going to experience these same increases. So we do want to put some word out there to our consumers. This is beyond our control. It's not related to the aggregation, and most of the consumers in the region are going to experience this. So in addition to some of the other higher commodities we're seeing, this is unfortunately going to hit.
All right, thank you very much. Next up is Mr. Duke, our Finance Director.
I have nothing to share this evening.
Nothing for tonight. Anyone have anything for our Finance Director? All right, thank you very much. And next up, I don't see her on the screen. I think she's still with us. Madam Law Director, thank you.
I can't see you either, so
Okay.
we're apparently having camera problems this evening. I just wanted to add, I didn't want to jump in while you were talking, but in discussing the CSU, the water line out there, when I first started, we did some extensive research. The engineering department helped. We pulled as many deeds and things as we could find. The state of Ohio does have the right for most of that line. The problem is most of that was done back in the late 30s and early 40s. And at that time, it was just mentioned in the property owner's deeds. It was not recorded as a separate easement. So that's what Mr. Merriman was referring to, that there's a little bit of a legal mess out there and that things are done so differently. Most of the deeds back then just gave the state the right to put in that water line. There was no separate easement filed. So that's the problem we're going to have to clean up moving forward.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else tonight, Madam Law Director? Anyone have any questions for our Law Director at this time? All right. Moving on to Mayor and Council comments. I'll start to the left. We'll open up the floor. Councilwoman Dean, do you have anything for tonight?
I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you very much. Councilman Scrivens, do you have anything for tonight?
Just two things, Mr. President. Thank you. Just wanted to express condolences to a fellow that we called Indian Richard. He was found deceased in his apartment there on East Market Street there, and he's what we was talking about earlier. And also to the family of Mrs. Leota Johnson Harris. I knew her as a kid. She worked at the corner store, our convenience store, so I bought my first pack of baseball cards and football cards with her. If I could have just kept those, my mother hadn't thrown them away, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I'd be in Florida somewhere selling tans. And then also, finally, Mr. President, my classmate, his name was Timothy Scott. I sat behind him in homeroom for 3 years and at Zinnia High School, and he's hence now gone on to his final reward. He was in the nursing home with the relatives that I sit between here, and I had met him about that same time, and had his home going there at the Woodland Cemetery here just this week, and his mother asked me to say a few words, and you know, of course I kept it short, but just wanted her to know and the classmates to know that you know, we all come this way. And, you know, he lived a good life. He was a former person in the U.S. Navy. And his mother really was happy that some of his classmates were there to see him off. So just wanted to say to Timothy Scott, farewell. And to all the rest of our classmates, got to stay together. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Scrivens. Councilman Branham.
Yeah, I would just like to add that I would like to thank Mr. Micah Adams from over there on Tennessee Drive that reached out to council. That's great. I love hearing from people that's actually from the west side of where I reside. So that's awesome. And look forward to hopefully him being active in the involvement with the downtown project.
Correct, and not to interrupt, I would like to ask, we are forming a committee for Xenia Town Square.
We will have a fairly well-regimented series of vignettes. We're again trying to figure out exactly how to do it with COVID still an issue.
Sure.
But yeah, it'll be well publicized, and I don't know, it won't necessarily be a committee, but a series of public input opportunities, some of them digital, some of them in person.
Okay, great.
And look for that probably the next, 45 days or so
Sure.
from now, that process will start.
Sure, yeah, it'd be nice to invite them
Absolutely.
to
Yeah,
participate in
absolutely.
that. I'm sorry, Councilman Branham, anything else tonight?
Nope, that's
Thank
it.
you, thank you for
Thank
those
you.
comments. Councilman Urschel.
Yeah, one of the weightier things I think that our city staff has is when we have folks that pass away in the city and, their remains are not claimed by family or cannot be claimed, and it becomes a responsibility of the city then to handle those remains and then perform the burial as well. And what were the number of folks we buried last summer?
Did 6 last year, but we're ready for, we've got another 7 right now.
Right.
Actually, I think we might have done 2 lots last year, come to think of it.
Right.
Yeah, so 12 last year.
12 last year altogether. And it's one of the larger mass burials that we've had in the city since the tornado. And I know many people were not aware of that, but I want to commend the city on how they handle that. That's a solemn responsibility to have. And we had a number, at the burials, we had a number of the pastoral staff come and officiate at that. And I would encourage you to continue to reach out to the pastoral community for these other burials as well, too, because I think it's very important, even though many folks in the community may not know these folks, their creator does. And we need to honor that as well, too. And so anyways, I just want to commend the city on the work that they've done and encourage them to continue to participate in that. That's
Thank
all.
you very much. I'll start with, next is Mayor Mays.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that tonight the Jeremiah Tree is having something online, a fundraiser, and it is going to be on YouTube. It's actually started at 7 o'clock, but you can view it through Sunday. So if you go to jeremiahtree.org, you can get information about that. It's they call it Growing Pains Drama. It's a comedy, drama, music. It's very lighthearted, but it talks also a lot about their mission and what they're doing. So it's just an opportunity to continue to invest in our community, to give to them. And obviously, I said many of us would not be able to watch it tonight, but we can watch it through Sunday. So just want to make people aware of that. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mays. Vice President Dean.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have anything else to share today.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, this will conclude our meeting for this evening with a short recess, followed by a work session. Those work sessions actually will not be televised tonight due to the length of that work session. So I would invite our colleagues to take a 5-minute break and resume at 7:30. Those that are watching, thank you very much, and appreciate those that have an interest in our city, and thank you for your continued support of our community.